Welcome back into Rounding Third podcast. We got the gang back together today for week 2 discussion. How we doing, boys?
Awesome.
All right. So before we get started here, make sure you go to our Facebook page and follow. You can also follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe to that channel as well. So leading off, we got some news and stuff from the week around, and it's only appropriate to talk about the ceremonial first pitch that was thrown out by this guy, Ichiro Suzuki, clocked at 93.6 miles an hour on a ceremonial first pitch, fastest first pitch in history. Second, I think, was 50 Cent, right? And
in New York.
Yeah. But yeah, Ichiro just gets out there, gets on the mound, and just hums a 94-mile-an-hour fastball to the catcher. Like, the guy's a stud, dude. You can still.
I love
step
how
on
he
the
got
field
up there in
and
like
kick some
full uniform too,
yeah.
like full
Oh, yeah.
pants, socks, jersey. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was so great.
No fooling around. I think there had to be at least a handful of teams out there that were looking at that first pitch going, man, he might look pretty good in our bullpen.
Socks included, maybe a starter.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. But yeah. So speaking also of a starter, Darwinzon Hernandez for the Woo Sox, I think he's down there right now.
Yep.
He struck out the side on 8 pitches. Now, the minor leagues are playing around with that. Like the batters get 9 seconds between pitches, and if they're not in the box, it's an automatic strike. So the batter that Hernandez was facing actually did this twice. So he could have struck out the side on 7 pitches, but he threw a ball in there. But I mean, come on now. I don't know.
I don't know. They're trying to fool around with the pitch clock stuff they've been doing for a couple of years down the minors. They're doing speed the game up, that kind of thing. Like I get it. Like I don't love it, but like I get that's how the game's been trending the past few years. So it's kind of like get on board with it because it's coming no matter what.
Right.
But just speaking of Darwinzon, dude, like from all the things I'm reading and the things you're seeing, like Alex Cora wanted him down in Worcester. I was going to say Pawtucket. Wanted him down in Worcester, like pitching on a very regular basis because obviously last year the issue that he had was command. Right? He's got nasty stuff. He's got the fastball. He's got the breaking ball stuff. Like he's a bitch to face. Whether you're a lefty or righty, just because of how nasty that stuff is. But he had the same walk rate that he had for strikeout rate. Like, that's outrageous. Like, you can't be – if you're striking out 15% of your guys, you can't also be walking 15% of your guys. Like, that's just crazy. But from at least the numbers and from the things you're reading, like, he seems to be doing much better down there as far as figuring that kind of stuff out. So, seeing what the bullpen has been, bullpen was, great against the Yankees, but obviously it came back to earth. I wouldn't mind seeing, him up sooner rather than later. I mean, if he can really keep that command and that kind of ability to throw a strike in any part of the count with any pitch, like Sox could certainly use a guy like him.
Yeah, we'll see him again. I mean, that bullpen's full of lefties right now. You got Josh Taylor, you got Matt Strom. Matt Strom's looks good. But one of those guys are going to go down at some point, and he will be up. He's the first arm up, I would imagine.
I would think so too. But then again, I mean, I think it's curious that he's down there in a starter role in Worcester. Like he's got him starting once every 5 days. Now, granted, they have him on. He's not going 5 or 6 innings, but they have him in a starter role to get regular every 5-day.
Right.
I find that a bit curious because you could just as easily put someone like him down in the bullpen and just tell the AAA manager he's your first guy in.
Yeah.
I mean, if all you care about is getting him regular innings, I mean, he's your first guy in no matter what. I mean, that's just what you tell the manager. So I don't know. I find it interesting. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. I don't know. But, with the way Rich Hill's looked, that's been tough. I think that's got to be one of those, the idea for Rich Hill, right, is to eat innings. The idea for Rich Hill is to come in one every 5 days, make things somewhat competitive, throw your, I mean, he's lasting 3 innings.
Right.
Like, so he's not even really doing the one thing that he's kind of supposed to be doing. So,
yeah,
I'm sure there's smart guys in there. I think Heim knows what he's doing, certainly knows how to build a roster. I think Alex Cora is a top manager and knows how to manage a roster. So, I mean, they know what they're doing, but it's a bit kind of tense watching that guy take them out every 5 days now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Hernandez too. I think to your point, Sean, he's down there starting. This organization's been really, really big on having developing pitchers start with clean innings. They love that
Mhm.
idea of having these guys starting clean innings, getting into the windup, getting into a rhythm, not coming in leverage situations, runners on base. I'm not sure if there's a reason for that, or if they just like the mental approach of just go out there and work on what you've got to work on. But they're big about the clean innings thing. And I look at a guy like Hernandez, and I've always struggled with this idea. You know, the Pirates did it this year with O'Neill Cruz. I struggle with this idea of sending a guy to AAA to develop. I feel like you send a guy with major league talent goes to AAA to work on something technical, something fundamental, something that's
Mhm.
hard to do at the major league level. But the experience on a major league roster in a major league ball club in major league type situations, I feel like is better for these guys than what they're going to get in Worcester. Is it good to get innings, good to get experience? Sure, but are you really getting a good look at how these guys are gonna do at that next level based on the results they get down in AAA? I've always struggled with that. Is that really
No,
helping?
I don't disagree with you. I think particularly your point would probably I think it would probably be better for like an O'Neill Cruz type, whereas like the Pirates are not expected to contend for a division. The Pirates are not. It's not like getting the at bats for O'Neill Cruz is going to take the bat out of someone's hand that can help you win the division. So like that's
Right.
like it's. I think with Darwinson, his value to the Red Sox, the big league club, the Red Sox, is to come in leverage situations, sixth inning, seventh inning, and be able to get those tough outs. But you can't do that if you don't throw strikes. And
Right.
he's down there to learn how to throw strikes against righties, against lefties, with guys on base, early in the game, late in the game, like whatever the situation, like he's down there to figure out how to consistently throw strikes. And I do think it's important for him to be down there now, because if you have him up on this roster and he's trying to figure it out now, like that could be costing your ball club wins. And like you can't afford to be costing yourself wins if you're the Red Sox. You can't fall too far
Ever.
behind in
Yeah.
this division. I
Absolutely.
generally, I probably your point's probably taken, but I think with Darwinson though, it's a bit of a unique situation. Like
Yep.
his value to this club is when he's putting balls in the strike zone, because he's way
Yep.
too electric. He gets way too many swings and misses. For some of these pitches last year, they weren't even close. Like they're not even enticing to swing at. So, I just think it's down there. It's and just I agree. Now that you say it, it does seem like they do love their developmental, these guys with clean innings. Which, I mean, I get the value of that, right? Like but at the end of the day, like
Sure.
guys like this are going to come up to the big league club and have to face leverage situations. Like they're going to
Right.
come in with guys on second and third, or guys on second tie game in the seventh. Like I feel like they need that kind of experience as well. But I guess one thing at a time. But
Yeah, but it's a fair point. If he's really down there to work on command and pounding the strike zone, not being afraid to pound the strike zone, then yeah, maybe the clean innings are best. He can just get out there and
right.
focus on throwing all of his pitches in the zone and not
Right,
worry
and I
about.
don't think Alex Cora and Hein Bloom are looking at the box score of the Woo Sox and counting the runs and hits that Darwinson gave up.
No, probably.
I don't think it's their number one priority. I mean, I think if he gets wrecked for five runs in the first inning, I think they might be a little concerned. But I don't think they're down there being like, oh well, he threw a perfect inning, so that's a good thing. Like I think it's more about, how is he handling it? Like how is he doing in between innings? What is he doing on a night to night basis? Like those kinds of things, I would feel like are what's kind of more on the forefront of what they're trying to figure out with him.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the next one here. We got. I thought this was really cool. I saw this. They just released the number 21 patch for Roberto Clemente for current players that have won the award to wear on their hats. So that will be Adam Wainwright, Carlos Carrasco, Yadier Molina, Rizzo, and McCutchen, I think, and Kershaw are the only active ones so far, or right now. So they'll get a 21 patch that they can put on their hat and wear for the rest of the season. I think that's amazing. I mean, everything the Roberto Clemente award, personates and all that stuff. Like I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing. I mean, NFL does it with the Walter Payton Man of the Year. Like you see the anyone that's ever won it in the NFL has those decals on the back of their helmet. I think it's a great thing. It's a wonderful award. It's more than just a baseball award, right? Like it's an award about who you are as a person, what you do in the community, how you handle yourself on and off the field. I think it's a wonderful, You know, it's something that should cause a lot of pride in these people that have won it, or even just been nominated, let alone not win
Right.
it. But I mean, just to be nominated is an incredible thing. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I think it's about time they do it. I love it, and I look forward to seeing it out there.
Yeah,
Well, and
absolutely.
it's nice to see Major League Baseball finally take one of those honors that, half the time just gets kind of quickly announced in the offseason and gets like 15 minutes of press, and then they move on from. It's nice to see them kind of memorialize that and turn that into something that, becomes part of baseball on a day-to-day basis, not just a headline for, one news cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just thought that was really cool, and I'm biased because Clemente's my favorite. So
He's your boy. Yeah.
yeah, it's great. So Albert Pujols hits his second home run of the season in St. Louis. Is he rejuvenated as a Cardinal, being back home? Like, is he, or does he just have the protection with Goldschmidt? And I mean, I'll get to Arenado later. And all the guys in that lineup. Like, is he just protected? Is he finally playing every day or close to every day, and he's getting the opportunity? Or is the Cardinals just being like, listen, we got to get this guy to 700? Or a combination of all of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's probably all of it. I mean, don't you? I mean, a guy like him, he's got to be rejuvenated going back home. Like, I mean, he's got to be.
Right.
I mean, like, to go back to St. Louis, I mean, that's not. We're talking legitimate baseball town. Like they love their baseball out there, and he's an immortal Cardinal.
Yeah.
Like you're thinking like Mount Rush. We did Mount Rushmore. I mean, Albert Pujols is if not on it, he's like the fifth guy for like the St. Louis Cardinals franchise. It's unbelievable, and he's back home and he looks good. Looks like he's in great shape. I mean, he's still out there playing, and I mean the protection is definitely part of it. It's got to be. I mean, it's got to be. That lineup is really, really good, and they have a lot of really, really good hitters. I hope he gets there. I hope he gets it.
I do too. I'm rooting for him hard.
So bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing Albert finally comfortable being back home.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last few years in Anaheim have been tough. They've been trying to find a way to push him off the field, and he's been trying to hang on. And because of the contract and all that, I think he's finally comfortable just playing baseball again. But to play devil's advocate, I mean, the two balls he's hit out were hangers that Nick Arno would have hit at least to the warning track.
At least
to the warning track. I mean, he's getting pitches to hit. He's hit two big mistakes out of the yard. Is he the Albert Pujols of old? No, but it's nice to see him getting some good at bats, driving in some runs, hitting a couple of home runs. I hope he gets to 700.
Oh, so
I hope
bad.
he does it. I hope he does it in St. Louis this year. That'd be huge for them. But Albert Pujols wasn't a bad player the last few years. He was just kind of a guy without a spot. I think he's back in St. Louis. The contract talk is in the rear view. He's just there to play baseball. Probably a big relief for him.
Yeah. So speaking of career milestones, Miguel Cabrera is 6 hits away from 3,000. I mean, he's on the watch this week, possibly, maybe next week. I'd be just another surefire Hall of Famer for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean he's been fun to watch. I mean, through our lifetime, kind of, the prime of his career has kind of been us coming up and growing up in the around watching the game of baseball. He's probably the best right-handed hitter, complete right-handed hitter I've seen. I can't talk for people in the 70s and 80s, but it's him and Manny that are right up there as far as pure right-handed hitters that I was able to watch. And I love myself some Manny, but for Miggy to still be doing what he's doing now,
it's
it's crazy. And they put him he's not hitting seventh, he's in the middle of that lineup, and it's I mean, I know the Sox took 2 out of 3, but he was never an easy at bat, and he's like 1 billion years old. And he just stands up there, and he goes opposite way. He puts it in the opposite gap. He's getting around on inside fastballs. It's just okay, it's just Miggy, I guess. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
I mean, 100% right. I mean, he and Manny are probably the 2 best right-handed hitters of that generation. So much fun to watch. And one of those guys who, kind of like Albert Pujols, who also probably falls in that category of kind of the greatest right-handers.
Yep.
Guys who, as they got older, didn't necessarily, change their approach. Continued to be good hitters, and the power fell off a little bit. But, so Cabrera doesn't hit 40-something home runs anymore, but he still hits missiles in the gap and chugs his way into second base. And probably a guy that could stand up there at 60 probably and get a couple of hits in a game because he's got that swing, he's got those hands. Manny had him. We're seeing Pujols at the very end of his career do the same thing.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of guys like him, and being able to
And
watch
my
him,
thing-
like you said, Sean,
Yeah.
we grew up with this guy. Being able to
Right.
watch him all the way through has been fun.
And he I don't think I can't speak for anyone else, but I personally don't think I ever gave Cabrera enough credit for the majority of this Hall of Fame career that he first ballot Hall of Fame. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But
No.
the majority of this career has been spent playing 81 home games in the most ridiculously large ballpark of all time. My brain always forgets how big that outfield is until
it's
the
huge.
Red Sox play a series, and then you watch it and you're just like you got balls that are just on the screws, teed up, and it's 8 steps in front of the warning track. I'm like, that is ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. And this guy played a majority of his career there and has hit 1 billion home runs. And it's okay, it's just unbelievable. I mean, he is just.
really
And I think it goes to show you, Manny's that way, Pujols that way, Cabrera's that way. There's a few guys, a handful of guys, who doesn't matter where they play, what ballpark, they make that ballpark work to their advantage. That's just the kind of talented hitters that they are, and that's Cabrera. I mean, he is a power hitter, but a legitimate average hitter who can just rip to both gaps. All right, I mean, tip your cap, right? It's just he's unbelievable.
Yeah, line to line. It's nuts.
He's unbelievable.
Could you imagine that guy spending his career at Fenway or at Yankee Stadium or Coors Field or places like that? I mean, that guy his numbers would have been ridiculous if he played in a ballpark that wasn't the size of Yellowstone.
Because they are ridiculous. So even more ridiculous than they are now.
It's insane.
Insane. He's a manager's dream for sure.
Oh, for sure.
But so speaking of managers, nice segue here. Our favorite manager of all time, Joe Maddon, walks Corey Seager intentionally with the bases loaded while losing. Okay,
in the fourth inning, it was the Rangers fourth inning.
The Texas Rangers are up by a run, and I think there was one out. So all he needs to do is roll over and hit into a double play. Joe Maddon walks him, and he says, "I want to avoid the big inning." Dude, stop. Just stop. I can't.
Barry Bonds is the only one that that's an appropriate thing to do. Bases loaded intentionally. Well, that's the only one. I like Corey Seager. He's more than a nice player. He's good. He's a very good player, young player, good hitter. It's Corey goddamn Seager. You pitch it. You pitch to him. You pitch to him. And if he flies out for a sacrifice fly, they score the run anyways, and you get an out.
Right. Right.
I just don't. The whole thing, but it's it's him. It's just Joe Maddon trying to outsmart everyone else. It's because he's the great Joe Maddon. And I laughed when I saw it, and then I got a rash.
Just shakes his head. Yeah.
It was just so bad.
Now,
you know what happened though? Mike Trout shook his head, and then he went on the injured list. So that's what happens when you shake your head.
Yeah, Nick's outfield was crushing it from the training room.
Dude, I can't.
But at the same time, I just want to point out that the Angels did go on to win that game and sweep that series.
They did.
They didn't sweep it. They won 3 out of 4.
Oh, sorry, that's right. 3 out of 4, 4-game series. I mean, so maybe Maddon is just crazy like a fox. I mean, I don't know. I was actually watching that game when that happened. And I'm going, what the hell is this guy doing? And and then a couple other runs came in to score, and I'm like, that just seems like it didn't work out at all.
Avoid the big inning.
Yeah, but they still gave up, I think, 3 runs in that inning. So I'm not sure how they really avoided the big inning.
That's exactly my point.
But they won. So apparently, maybe it could have been worse than he's crazy like a fox. I don't know.
In the 6th inning, I know we're gonna have nobody on base, but what we're gonna do, we're gonna walk the bases loaded, so we have a horse at any base. I think that's probably our best plan of attack. And then, I can't with that guy. I'm all set.
He's done some weird stuff I thought was brilliant. He's also done some weird stuff that's made me scratch my head, and this certainly falls into that bucket of what the hell were you thinking?
I mean, guy, the only way, I'm sorry, the only way that's an acceptable thing to do in the 4th inning, no less, is yes, there's one out, and the pitcher's up next, and
right.
but even still, if it was the pitcher, that wouldn't make a ton of sense because he's likely going to strike out. So it's like, I mean, the only way is if it's a guaranteed double play of the next guy up. So it's like, yes, we'll trade 1 run for an inning and a double play.
Right.
But there's no guarantees in that. So you might as well just pitch to a guy like Seager.
Right.
The whole thing was just
Unless Seager's already taken you deep twice in the game, there's zero excuse for it. If Seager's locked in at the plate and has already taken you deep twice, then fine. I have no issue
Yeah,
with
right.
putting him on.
Right.
Or if Seager's hitting like 800 lifetime against the guy on the mound, maybe.
Yeah.
But good God.
Oh God. I don't know. I just can't.
I think Scott's trying to help us transition to to another headline topic, which is contracts for Raffy and X.
I mean, those, I was going to get to those. Those are on the list, but I mean, we can go to them now because, I mean, I don't know. How are we feeling? I want to get your takes before I throw in my stuff, but how are our feelings with how X and Rafi are being dealt with right now? Do you think they're just doing it to like just to start the talks, or do you think these are like legit offers?
I don't know. I mean, I think the Xander's a bit more of a tricky one just because of how high they are on Marcelo Mayer. Like I really think their fear, whether I agree with it or not, it almost seems like their big fear is that there's going to be like this organizational clog up for him. And I don't think they want that. I think they see this kid as the next Xander Bogaerts or whatever. I think the Raffy one, because they have the extra year, right? They have 2 years to figure it out.
Correct. Yep.
I still don't know if I agree with it. As far as like taking this approach, like to me, Jose Ramirez signs that extension that he signed, and I know that was similar to the one that Raffy had turned down. Jose Ramirez signs that in Cleveland. If I'm Heim, I'm on the phone with Raffy's agent until we figure it out. Like this is just
absolutely.
Cleveland walks down their third baseman of the field. Like this guy, and he's had a hot start to the year. He's batting second in your lineup, and I picked him to win the AL MVP. And defensively, Nick, I almost texted you the other day. He's been awesome defensively. And
I'm telling you, he's getting better every year.
He is, and I was shitting on his defense like a month ago, but he's made some really, really good plays. Some key plays that have gotten you out of innings or stopped a big inning. We're talking about big innings. Like he's kind of bringing everything to the table now, and it's almost like this is what they do though with everyone. They did it with Mookie. They're doing it. They did it with Xander. They're doing it with Raffy. They did it with John Lester, for Christ's sakes, and it cost John Lester to walk out the door. And it's like this slow play, this like, oh well, we're going to offer you something that we know you're going to decline, something that we know is below value, something we know you're not going to want, but we're going to do it so that we can show everyone that at least we're trying. But it's like a disingenuous try almost. I don't know.
Right. Well, Rafi turned down the years, right? Not necessarily the money. It was the years, right? Didn't he want a longer contract? I think is what it was.
So did Xander.
It was both the amount of years. It wasn't necessarily the money total. It was just the years.
Oh, yeah. It sounded like they both wanted the higher. They wanted the higher average annual, but they also wanted the longer overall. Yeah.
Well, okay. When I say they don't want the money, I'm not saying like they're offering them like, whatever.
They wanted the longer year. It's
right.
Like Xander. It's like 35 a year or 30 a year for Xander. I think that the 30 a year is fine, but he wants like 6 or 7 years. I don't think it's the 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, the $100 million apart is for the years.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I think I think it's
better
mostly...
than Ramirez. And I don't know about $100 million better, but yeah, no, Raffy's definitely a better player than Jose Ramirez. No question about that. But I just think that once Jose Ramirez figured that out and that contract got done, all I'm saying is, he probably deserves a little bit more money than Jose Ramirez. But if you're the Red Sox front office, that's the sign, that's the kickoff thing that says, all right, we got to get this done now. We got to get this done. Right? You can't waste any more time. Like, yes, we have an extra year. And I don't know, like, they're obsessed with taking these things down to the wire. And I don't know why.
Hate it. Yeah. I don't get it either.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, Xander saw the contracts that went out this summer. You got Craig at $35 million a year. Seager was what, 30 or 35 million a year for a long time. Talking long contract. The Red Sox just have proven they weren't going to do it with Mookie. They're not going to do it with X. Maybe they do it with Devers. I don't know. But when you look at Chaim Bloom's track record and the Red Sox track record, they just don't give out those contracts. They don't give out the 10-year, $300 million contract.
Right.
It's just not. It's not there. It's not how they build a team. And honestly, when I think about it from the perspective of constructing a team, I mean, look at what the Angels have done. They gave Trout that massive contract, and they've sucked ever since they gave it to him. It's really hard to build a competitive team with one player making that kind of money that's tying up 10 to 15% of your payroll all by himself, and you got 24 other guys you need. You end up creating this big gap from the top to the bottom, and I'd rather see them go out. I mean, honestly, Xander, I don't see him coming back. I actually wonder if they don't trade him at the All-Star or at the trade deadline this year to try to get something.
See, but...
I don't think Chaim wants to sign him. To your point, Sean, I think they have concerns about where Mayer fits in if he's ready. They signed Story as a plan B, so he can slide over. Go find a second baseman on the cheap until Mayer's ready. Devers, they've got time with him. I think they'll make a better run at Devers. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't stay either. Defensively, is he better? Sure. Is he great? Absolutely not. He probably projects as a first baseman long term. Is a first baseman worth $35 million a year? No. I mean, hell, Freddie Freeman's not getting $35 million a year. Why are you going to give that to Devers? I'd take Freeman over Devers in a heartbeat tomorrow. I don't see the market being where. Oh yeah,
I don't agree with that.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I love Freddie Freeman, but I don't know. I don't know about a heartbeat. I mean, you might be able to convince me, but it would take some heavy convincing.
I mean, I'd take either one, to be honest, but
right. Well, but you look at the contracts that Freeman and Olsen signed. I mean, that's a market first baseman deal.
But Matt Olson's also raking right now. That guy is in fuego.
He was my NL MVP pick because I expected him to rake in that ballpark in that lineup. But you look at, I would take Olsen over Devers. I would take Freddie Freeman over Devers. And I love Raffy, don't get me wrong there. But I would take both of those guys, and they're going to make less than I think he's looking for. So I don't know that he stays long-term either. But I definitely think X is gone. The question becomes, how quickly do they move on from him? And do they try to get something before he takes off? Because he'd be a great rental player for a team that's in contention.
Yeah, I'm with Sean on the fact that, I don't understand why they start so far apart. You're giving these guys we're going to offer you 1 year for $27 million. Obviously he's going to say no. Why are you starting with a stupid contract offer? I mean, that's not the contract offer they gave him. I was just, but why can't you be closer to the mark? Are they trying to get bottom dollar? These guys aren't going to sign for bottom dollar. They're not going to take the hometown discount anymore.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's I don't even know if it's trying to get it for bottom dollar or if it's more of a show to the fans, a show to the supporters. Be like, hey man, we're trying. They said no. What do you want me to do? We offered it. We're trying. They're not even willing to come to the table. And again, I don't know how it just almost comes off that way because it's not like this is a one-off thing. They did it with John Lester. They're doing it with Sanders. They're doing it with Raffy. I mean, it's just we did it with Mookie. Yeah. I mean, it's just a thing that this organization has done for quite a while. So it's almost like there's a and they all end up leaving. None of them end up signing it.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. It's a tad frustrating, but when the Story contract came through, I think we all
knew what was happening.
The expectation is that Xander's gonna be gone. I'd love to have him back, obviously, but I think the expectation there at that point is, I mean, because you remember Story was what 6 years, right?
Yep.
6 years, 140.
Yep. So,
and how long do we think it's going to be until this 19-year-old Marcelo Mayer is ready to be full-time shortstop for the Red Sox? Probably about 4 to 5 years, right? I mean, it's almost as though it was planned out perfectly that this is Xander's gonna be last year. Trevor moves over for the kind of the time being. We go and find ourselves to Harrison's point, a second baseman on the cheap. We have Christian Arroyo that played there. We love Christian Arroyo. We're trying to get his bat in the lineup by playing him everywhere all over the field. So, it almost seems like too perfect for them, for the Red Sox, to say we're not going to pay Xander the $300 million that he's looking for because we have all these other options.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Jeter Downs too. Doug makes a good point, and I hear this guy's having a hell of a year so far down in the minors. So,
that's good because he needed a bounce back because he did not have a good year.
Yeah, he was terrible last year. Yeah.
No, but I think you look at it. The Red Sox went through the Dave Dombrowski era. Dave Dombrowski said, "Screw the minor leagues. I'm going to throw all the money I've got at major league talent." He did that. They won in 18. They completely cratered after that, underneath all the contracts. Kind of tore it all down, repositioned it. I don't think the ownership group wants to go through that again. Chaim Bloom doesn't build a team that way.
And before that, they did Gonzalez and Crawford. And we all know how that went. It's the same kind of thing. You're right.
Yeah, they've never had good luck with these big contracts. Chris Sale's contract is going to go down as probably one of the worst the Red Sox have given, because he's been a shell of himself since 18.
Yeah.
And I think I read somewhere he can opt out at the end of this year too. I think he can opt out a year before the contract ends. But who cares if he opts out? We haven't seen the guy in 2.5 seasons.
Right.
I think a lot of us have forgotten what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy. All right. Also, we got 2 more things real quick. Back to college real quick. There was a kid from Ole Miss.
Not coming back, huh?
Oh, Nick.
Every time he starts. I want to bring up an interesting article I saw. I saw an interesting one this morning. So Ken Griffey Jr. is actually going to be in the top 5 highest paid players of the Cincinnati Reds this year at $3.6 million in deferred compensation.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Ken Griffey Jr., who's not been on the field in years, is going to make $3.6 million this year and be one of the highest paid players on the Cincinnati Reds.
Bobby Bonilla Jr.
There are so many guys out there right now. I mean, you look at the contracts these guys are signing right now. Freddie Freeman's got $57 million in deferred compensation he won't get until 2040. Wow. It's everybody's Bobby Bonilla these days.
Mm.
Yeah, dude. It's not a show until I get dropped, and this one was early.
Doug,
I don't understand why I get dropped every single time.
I
think it's because I'm on my school computer.
It's that North Carolina internet.
Probably.
It's got to get through all the grass fields and banjos.
For sure.
College player, go.
Yeah, college player from Ole Miss hit a ball 481 feet the other day. If you can find the video, go back and watch it. Not a single player moved. The outfielders didn't even turn around to watch it. They just, the thing was just tanked. It was just a hanging slider, and the kid parks at 500 feet, dude. Insane.
Is this the Hispanic Titanic? Sean's favorite guy?
No,
he's on Texas. Yeah.
Oh.
His last name was Alderman. Yeah, just absolutely.
Where is he from? Ole Miss, you said?
Ole Miss,
Ole
yeah.
Miss, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely destroyed. Yeah, I can't even, it just sounded different coming off that metal bat too. It was just insane. But yeah. And then the last thing, I know this has been a long leading off segment, but
is he frozen again?
Yeah. I'm putting the link to the video of that home run. It is unreal what that guy does to a baseball.
Yeah, it's insane.
So
what was the last one, Nick?
I really do not know what's going on. This is really making me so mad. The Nationals might be sold because of their World Series win. So that would, they might be going bankrupt. They might be selling the team. And that would explain why they got rid of Trey Turner. They got rid of Scherzer. They dumped everyone.
Yeah. What's interesting is that the owners paid $450 million for the team. Then they poured a bunch of money into payroll. Now they're sitting on $500 million worth of debt, or $500 million worth of debt. Sorry. And a couple $100 million worth of deferred compensation to guys like Scherzer and Strasburg. And so really they had to fire sale the players they did, because they have a lot of deferred compensation that's going to come due here in the next couple of years that they got to be prepared to pay on. And it's, in many ways, it's becomes this kind of shadow salary that, they're paying on an annual basis. We talk about Bobby Bonilla Day. What you're finding now in Major League Baseball is that almost every team has players like that. Ken Griffey Jr. gets paid by the Cincinnati Reds for 2 more years. Freddie Freeman's contract, he signed that $162 million deal. $57 million is deferred and will be paid to him between 2028 and 2040. So there are, most of these contracts, there's a heavy component of deferred compensation. And when that money starts coming due, these teams are paying active salaries, active payroll plus all this deferred compensation that's spun up in the background, and it becomes, for some of these teams, it's become a significant amount of money. So we laugh at where their payroll's at, but in reality, they're paying that payroll sometimes times 2 with
Right.
all the deferred comp they're getting rid of, which is how they were able to be competitive when they were.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was a crazy story. It was a crazy story to read. I mean, it does put into perspective a little bit and kind of connects those dots as to why there was a bit of a fire sale there. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes.
Well, and also as quick as it was like all of a sudden just boom, everybody's out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, and nobody really knew why until that story came out. And it's like, okay, now it all makes sense.
Well, and what's funny too with a team like the Nationals is like they've got a weird television deal because the Baltimore Orioles, like they've had all kinds of trouble from day one making sense out of that that whole structure there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like MLB TV. Like I'm blacked out from Washington and Baltimore. I'm blacked out from both, which is stupid. Like, why am I blacked out from 2 teams? Last year I was blacked out from the Braves too. The closest MLB team for me is like 6 hours. It's like, why am I blacked out of 3 places? But that's MLB TV. I don't need that one though. Yeah, Manny just came off the books.
Yep.
Crazy.
A lot out there.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the matchups of last week. So weekly news. Rays lost 3 out of 4 to the Oakland Athletics. I mean, we have been dumping on the Oakland A's for, I don't know, since October when we started. And like we looked at this team and we looked at the roster and it's like all the names we know, there's like 3. And these guys are, what did you say, Harrison? They're leading the league in runs, correct?
Who? The
Oakland Athletics?
Yeah, the Oakland Athletics have scored the most runs of any team in Major League Baseball.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It's awesome.
What's even crazier to think is that the New York Yankees are in the bottom 3 in terms of runs scored in all of baseball.
I mean,
let that sink in for a second.
Yeah, and I don't think Oakland. I think Oakland's played 1 home series. I think almost all their games too have been on the road.
Yeah, it's insane.
Which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Who knows?
It's been like I feel like this is like the NFL. There is massive parity across the league, at least right now. There's only one team who I don't think is actually competing, and that's the Reds. We knew they weren't. And you've only got a couple of teams like the Dodgers and Mets that have really started to pull ahead as the leaders of the pack. Everybody else is like stuck in the middle right now, and it's been really competitive.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, they've been good. They've been good games to watch, good series to watch. Good pitching matchups. I mean, it has been good. It really has. And then again, I mean, take all the shitting on the A's that we did. I mean, I'm glad to watch them go into Tampa and take 3 out of 4.
Absolutely.
They're in Baltimore now, and Baltimore just took 2 out of 3 from the Yanks at home, and one of them, the final game yesterday, was a shutout, 5-0. Like, I mean, if I told you that the first, April 18th, that I was looking forward to a Oakland-Baltimore game, but the way those 2 teams are playing, like that could be a good series to tune into. So, I'm with you guys. It's been good parity.
Yeah, your top 4 teams in the American League in runs scored are the Oakland Athletics, the Texas Rangers, the Los Angeles Angels, and the Cleveland Guardians. If anybody had that bet, it should pay out.
Dude, and not only that is like the Texas Rangers are in the top 4. This is how crazy baseball is. They're in the top 4 of runs scored, and they're in last place in the AL West. I mean, just think about that for a second. I mean, like, it's either really bad pitching on their part or just really bad luck. Like a team's just hot that day. Like,
well, it's it's that. I think the pitching's been tough. I think the defense has been tough. They've really not put themselves in good positions. I haven't watched a ton of Texas Ranger games, but the few that I've watched, it's been kind of tough defense. It's been kind of leading the pack there. But, I mean, again, a team like that scores a lot of runs, they're going to win some games. Their pitching will get hot. The defense will settle in, And if the bats continue to roll, I mean, they're going to win some baseball games. But
Yeah. That was a series for me to watch this past weekend was the Angels and Rangers, just to kind of
Yep.
see where the AL West was possibly going to trend or where we're going to head up. And the Angels took 3 out of 4 there. So
Yeah.
are the Angels legit? Do we think the Angels have what it takes?
I mean, they're talented. They got some talent, I should say. I mean, I think they got some talent. I hate Joe Madden, but I mean, the guy does. I mean, he does have result. I mean, he wins games. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
This will say a
the-
lot, I think, about Joe Madden with like the young talent that they have in LA, and to see if he can kind of keep it for a whole year and see how they go. It's gonna be a tough division, though. I mean, Houston's not gonna go away. Texas is talented. Seattle has a great roster. I think Seattle's still gonna have to figure some things out, but they have a talented roster. So it's gonna be a division that's gonna kind of beat up on each other. But taking 3 out of 4 from Texas is no joke. I don't care if it's earlier in the year, middle of the year. I don't care who's hurt. But that's an impressive thing to do. So
Yeah.
it might be.
Yeah, the Angels were my last wild card team when we talked about postseason predictions. I think they're sneaky good, but it relies upon Trout being healthy, and he's already had to walk off the field during a game, and Syndergaard pitching well, which he has. He's been actually very effective to start the year.
Yeah.
And Ohtani, after a quiet first few games, his bat's woken up,
Mhm.
and it's been loud. He hit 1 home run that I'm pretty sure they showed a movie on it. But I mean that team, they've got the pieces to make some noise. The question is, are they going to have those pieces together for enough games to make enough noise?
That first ball that Otani hit was at his eyeballs, dude, and he had to have hit that a
my
mile
God.
in the air, and that thing just kept carrying
It just
and
doesn't make
carrying.
sense.
No,
What-
I was like, dude, how did you hit that pitch out of there, like 390 feet? But like
In the
straight
batter's
up.
box, he looks like he's like 7'11".
Mhm.
He's like, his arms and legs are like so ungodly long. He looks like he's 7'11" and he can reach everything.
Yeah, it's nuts, man, crazy. Were there any big matchups or series that you guys watched? I mean, Red Sox Twins was kind of Xander woke up a little bit, which was nice. But any other series that you saw that you were like, okay, like
I mean, I thought the Astros Mariners series was good. It was a good look at the National League. I think Houston ended up taking 2 out of 3, but the games were good. I did find that to be an interesting series. Cardinals Brewers was okay. And then you had a lot of other series that I think were, I think typical early season, big time mismatches or just odd series. I will say, having watched a couple games now with the Phillies, that is not an impressive ball club to watch.
Mm-mm.
Not at all. Defensively, they are horrendous. At the plate, they are just flailing. And Schwarber's a disaster so far. They're moving him down the lineup, sliding Bryce Harper up to the second. They're already blowing the lineup up from the start of the season, which tells me that there's definitely some discomfort with how they're playing. But they've not been impressive to watch. And I loved watching the Bohm there. Talk about how much he hates that place. I found that was pretty entertaining.
See, Harper was one of my biggest downfalls because I think the pressure of like all the preseason predictions of being like, man, the Phillies are going to mash this year. They're going to be good. Like, would get to him. I just think he's that type of player that I don't think he could be in a pressure cooker.
Yeah, and the Phillies. I mean, the Phillies have hit okay. Like they're middle of the pack offensively, but their pitching's been horrendous and their defense has been horrendous.
Yeah.
Blowing leads, and it hasn't been good for them. It's been a tough start for them.
It has. I mean, I'll say on the opposite side with the NL East, I think, the Mets have been fun to watch. Those have been, regardless of who they've played, 7 wins. The starting pitching, their starters combined have like a 1.07 ERA. So the starters have just been awesome, getting off to real hot starts. And then, the bats have been there up and down the lineup. And they've given these starting pitchers, whether it's Taylor Megill, who has 2 wins and hasn't given up a run yet, whether it's him, whether it's Scherzer, Taijuan Walker, like these guys are getting runs early in the game, and they're getting out in front with leads, and then they are not relinquishing them. And they're a fun team. I know Arizona's just came to town in New York, and Arizona is not a great ball club, but just to watch them kind of go up and down the lineup and just the power's there, the on base is there. It's the what's the word I'm looking for here? They hit as a team. It's not just
Right.
Yeah,
we're just gonna
situational hitting, all that.
exactly. Yeah, like it's not like, oh well, we're just gonna we'll hopefully we get a few guys on for Pete Alonso to hit a home run, and he's got a couple, but it's all up and down the lineup. I mean, it's Jeff McNeil in the 7-hole starting to get hot. It's Brandon Nimmo before the whole COVID thing when he was getting on base at a ridiculous clip. Like they're just every time it's their half of the inning, they got 2 or 3 guys on. So they're a fun team to watch. And I don't really see it slowing down. Like it's not out of character. It's not like it's like, oh, like look at these guys who aren't very good but are playing above their heads. It's like, no, these guys are just really good baseball players that are playing really good baseball right now. And they're fun. They jumped out to us. It's them and the Giants have the most wins in baseball right now with 7.
Yeah, Dodgers have 7 now too. But I mean,
Dodgers too. That's right. Yeah.
The Mets, Giants, and Dodgers have clearly stepped out as the class of the NL. There's a couple other teams that record-wise aren't far off. They're maybe a game off, like the Rockies, but statistically, these 3 teams are not just winning games; they are dominating who they play against. You look at the Mets. They've got a plus 26 run differential. They've given up the 3rd fewest runs in the league. Plus 26 in 10 games. I mean, they're winning.
Crazy.
They're winning by almost 3 runs a game right now. I mean, they're right neck and neck with the Dodgers, and we thought the Dodgers were by far the best team in the NL. I think the Mets, even without Jacob deGrom, are proving that they are a legitimate ball club. And Buck Showalter, I mean, the atmosphere of that team is so different from last year. Like, look at Lindor. I mean, Lindor's out there playing baseball again, having fun.
Yeah.
And it's not only that. Like, I mean, that plays a role, but I think it's got to be so comforting for a guy like Lindor or a newcomer like Starling Marte or Max Scherzer or guys that have played in the league for a number of years. They're not rookies. They've played in the league. They've played for other teams, and they come over and they play for a manager like Buck, who Buck knows how to manage a ball club throughout a 162 game season. Right. Like, and he knows how to get the most out of those players, like little things, like after maybe the 2nd or 3rd game of the year, they asked Buck, who was it? Sean Reed Foley, maybe he went with in like the 6th or 7th inning instead of, maybe a better kind of reliever in the 7th. And they asked Buck about it after the game. And he said, it's too early in the year to have guys throw back-to-back games right now. Like, there's no need. Like, there's no need to blow somebody's arm on April 11th. Like, it's just not a necessary thing for me to do. Like, if I get an inning out of Sean Reed Foley and we hold the lead into the 8th, great. If he gives up the lead, it's early. Like, we'll figure that kind of stuff out as it goes along. And like little things like that, where I feel like the Mets didn't have those managers before. No. Like Luis Rojas would be blowing out a guy in the bullpen blowing out his arm, and it's not even like May 10th yet. And it's like, well, now he's got a tired arm. And, so little things like that, I think Buck has really good experience with. And he shows what he can do when he's got talent on a roster. It's a talented roster, and I think he's doing a great job with them.
They're in a great place.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, you look at Rojas, who was clearly inexperienced and was panicking for every potential win he could get to try to save his job. A guy like Buck Showalter strolls in there with all the experience he's got. He doesn't care about the win or the loss. He's managing for the season, for the long term.
Right.
If we don't win today, we'll win tomorrow. I'm not worried about it. I've got enough credibility. I'm not going to get fired if we get off to a slow start. So he's just out there calling his game. The players are all kind of like vibing together right now. They're situational hitting. The pitching's been stellar. They're playing good defense. Like Lindor, who they gave the big contract to, who was such a mess last year, has been stellar to start the year.
Awesome.
It looks like every one of those players went through the pressure cooker of New York in the last couple of years, and now they're like, oh, this is all right. We'll be okay. This is going to work out well, and they're just playing baseball again.
Yeah, they are. They're playing baseball, and they're a fun baseball team to watch for sure.
I mean, they're stellar. I mean, they in all facets.
Their first game tonight got postponed, so they got a nice little doubleheader tomorrow with the Giants. That's going to be an awesome series. That's obviously for the next moving forward. For this upcoming week. That's my one that I'm looking forward to. I mean, like Harrison, you said, they're standing out. Those 2 of those 3 teams are standing out as the class of the NL, and they're going at each other in New York here now. So they got 2 games on Tuesday. So that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're gonna move on to a 7th inning where we have the players of the week. I'll start with mine, I guess. The same guy as I had last week, Nolan Arenado, is still absolutely on fire. He's 13 for 30. That's a 433, 4 homers, 12 RBIs, 9 runs.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
the
Disgusting.
guy's not getting out. Yeah, he's not getting out. And crazy. But yeah, and just to throw this in, CJ Cron and Guerrero Jr. are your home run leaders right now with 5 apiece. So
that was gonna be so my 2. Cron was gonna be 1 just because of the 2 that he hit the other day. 1 that went over the goddamn hot dog vendor. That was
tanked.
outrageous.
That
ball
was
just kept
mashed.
going. Like I know it's Denver, but like so what?
But
That
still.
was insane. It just kept going. It just kept going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that ball was
Unbelievable.
mashed.
And my second one, I can't believe we are 51 minutes into this and have not talked about it. Clayton Kershaw had a
Oh, yeah.
perfect game,
Oh yeah.
and Dave Roberts should be in jail. In jail, he should be in jail.
100%.
I like it.
He threw 80 pitches through 7 innings. That's like 11 and a half pitches an inning or whatever the hell that comes out to be. So it's like,
Yep.
and he had 13 Ks. So you need at least 3 pitches to strike somebody out. He had done that 13 times and had only thrown 80 pitches. So like just thinking about that, he was extremely efficient. So it's like, what are you worried about? Like, okay, I get it. He's had injury problems. It's his first start of the year. It's cold where they were, right? Like it was raw. And like, so I get all of that in Minnesota. Like I get all of that. You let him try it. You got to send him out in the 8th. If he struggles the littlest bit, gives up a bloop, or even gets a guy out and has but even gets a guy out and has a 9-pitch at bat. Like if you're worried about something like that, but you got to let him try it. He had 80 pitches.
I agree. 80.
And we're not talking about a no-hitter. This guy's had a no-hitter. He's had no-hitters. We're not talking about no-hitter. We're talking about the 24th potential perfect game in the history of baseball. 24. That's it. There's only been 23. There's been 23 of these in how many thousands of baseball games? There's been 23. And this dickhead Dave Roberts didn't let him go out and at least try it in the 8th inning. I was mortified.
Absolutely. And how Clayton Kershaw handled that, I don't know. I would have lost my shit. I would
have been serving 25 to life. He would have had to drag my dead body off of that mound.
And I think Clayton Kershaw's I think it goes to show you he's a great teammate. But I do think it might raise a little bit of a red flag about someone's competitiveness. Like, how does he not want to go back out there? And maybe, so maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe Dave Roberts said to him, hey, this is the decision, and we'll talk about it after the game. We'll talk about it in my office. Don't make a scene, blah, blah, blah. And maybe Clayton Kershaw, being the great teammate he is, said, all right, I won't cause a scene. We'll talk about it afterwards. Maybe. But I'm telling you, without knowing that happened in the background, to me, that raised a little bit of red flag that he just didn't care. Like, how do you not care? A perfect game. That is outrageous.
No, I mean, I am shocked that he so willingly handed the ball over to him, walked off the mound.
Me too.
I miss the days of Roy Halladay, Roger Clemens, Pedro Martinez, who'd point at the dugout and say, "Don't you dare come get me! I'm not going." And I remember the days of Clemens and Pedro arguing with the manager on the mound, who's reaching for the ball, saying, "I'm not giving it to you. I will not give you this baseball."
And another thing. In the top of the 8th, the Dodgers put like 6 runs on the board. They had back-to-back. So by the time
I forgot about that.
But by the time the 8th came around, it was like 6-0. So it's like
game was
whatever,
over.
man. It's not a 1-run game that like you're worried like you got to go to your great bullpen. It's a 6-run game. The guy's got a perfect game with 13 Ks and 80 total pitches. Like, I'm sorry. I don't care what the nerds in the stat sheets upstairs say. You send him out for the 8th goddamn inning. Like, that's what you do.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
I was just, that was awful. That was
Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. Nobody
awesome.
sits near him, but he goes back out.
He looked awesome too out there. Like he was dealing.
Yeah, he was.
Well, and that's
the
point I was going to make. He looked like vintage Kershaw. I mean, like he had some velocity, some bite. You know,
and he was setting guys up too. It was almost like he was playing against a minor league team with the way he was setting those guys up.
Yeah.
Like
we weren't even sure. We weren't even sure if they should sign him, thinking he might be done, and he comes out and spins that gem, looking like the old Kershaw. But it boggles my mind that Roberts took him out, and that Kershaw gave him that ball. But
And just that like the mainstream media has no issues with it. Like they're just like applauding Dave Roberts and Clayton Kershaw for doing what they did and how they handled it. Like, I mean, okay, did they handle it fine? I guess, but like Sean said, it's perfection. It's happened 23 times. This was number 24. They didn't let it happen. It's
okay if it doesn't. A lot of
Right.
perfect games are lost in the eighth inning, and that's an okay thing. But you got to let them try.
Yeah,
I know.
It was a 6-0 ball game. Like, what is the harm?
yeah, it's crazy.
And it wasn't like he was 110 pitches deep on his first start of the year. He threw 80 pitches. I mean, come on.
80.
He's got another 20, 25 in that arm easy. Just
And then
he's throwing tonight for his second game, so we'll see how tonight goes.
And then I can't even remember who it was. I think I texted you guys like the night after. It was like Corbin Burns or somebody like that would threw like 102 pitches, and it's like,
Yeah.
I was like, what the nice, left him on the bench. Nice work.
I will
there.
say this.
Oh,
I'll have to look it up, but it just popped into my head. Didn't Rich Hill, when Rich Hill was in LA,
yeah,
didn't
he
Rich
got pulled.
after
Yep.
a perfect, was in the middle of a perfect game?
Yep,
And that was Dave Roberts too.
yep. He's pulled. He's the only manager in history to pull somebody with a perfect game, and he's done it twice.
That's outrageous.
and
Yep.
he's got a job. It's amazing.
Yeah, let's give him a 3-year extension. I might actually
That's
add another
outrageous.
2 on the end of that, just for that move alone.
And that doesn't make him but that doesn't make him a bad manager. Like, I don't think Dave Roberts is a great manager, but I don't think he's a terrible manager. What I do think is that Dave Roberts is like almost afraid of these stat sheet nerds in LA. He's
Yes.
like almost afraid, like, well, they told me 7 innings, so I can only pitch him 7 innings. It's like, bro, it's a goddamn perfect game. Like, tell those nerds to sit on it and rotate, and you send him out there for the 8th inning. That's just what
Right.
happens. Like, if we're gonna start letting these stat sheet spreadsheet people run baseball, why even pay a manager? Why even
Right.
pay somebody? Why
Yeah.
even why do we even have Dave Roberts put on a uniform and sit in the dugout and do all that? You might as well save the money, have a bench coach, and then somebody sends a little email down to say, this is what we're gonna do next.
Yeah, we're gonna run the algorithm and tell you what to do next. Like,
It's just it's so bad. I don't think he's a terrible manager, but it just seems like he has no spine when it comes to that. It's like, and if I'm Dave Roberts, I don't want to manage for an organization that doesn't let me make decisions like that. I don't need to make every decision, and I think some decisions should be talked about. But a perfect game going into the 8th inning is no discussion. He's going out.
Okay, so bullpen starting in the playoffs, is that a Dave Roberts decision or an analytic decision?
I mean, that's an it stinks like an analytic decision, doesn't it?
Right.
I mean, Dave Roberts played the game. Dave Roberts played in the 90s and the 2000s when you put your best pitchers out there, and that's how he grew up in the game of baseball. I can't imagine. Now, I'm not saying he's not receptive to it, but I can't imagine Dave Roberts is walking into the door being like, I have a great idea that I think is going to help us win. Now, do I think he has no spine, and by letting that happen, yeah, I think he's spineless, but I doubt that it was his decision.
but at the same time, like just like we talked about Buck Showalter and Luis Rojas, you know, a guy like Buck Showalter with all his years of experience and his credentials, he would do exactly what you just said. He'd tell the front office people to sit on it and rotate. I'm going to make my decisions because I know more about baseball than you guys will ever know. I'm going to make my decision because I'm comfortable enough as a manager with my background. A guy like Dave Roberts he's only ever managed there. He's not. I mean, they've won a World Series and they've been to a bunch, but they haven't had they haven't broken through as this like dominant
World
dynasty
Series.
type team. Yeah, right. 20 whatever.
But it doesn't even have to be that, like, I know more baseball than you, so I'm going to make the decisions. It's about, like, baseball's the ultimate game about, like, you have to feel the vibe of the game. Like, how is the game
eyeball
flowing?
test?
Like, it just, you have to feel it. Like, there's not a single person that was in that game in Minnesota sitting in the stands being like, oh, Kershaw's struggling, you got to go to the bullpen. Like, you feel your way into that. Like, the feeling of that game was, holy shit, this guy's dominating. Like, he has everything working, and he is efficient, and he's pounding the strike zone, and the guys are playing defense behind him. Like, that's the feel of the game. At no point when you were watching that game did you think, like, oh, they should even have somebody warming up. Like, that's what I mean about no spine. Like, you don't have to be like, to me, like, you don't have to, you can confer with the people upstairs about baseball decisions. You can confer all you want and have a discussion about, hey, what's our philosophy as a team and this, that, or the other. That's fine. But, like, when the actual game is being played, like, you have to have some kind of autonomy to say, hey, this is how the game's going. This is the move I'm going to make. And if you don't have that, why are you even there?
Yeah, and
Well,
I'm honestly, I think that's what made like Bobby Cox such an incredible manager. Okay, yeah, he had Maddox and Smoltz and Glavine and all those Hall of Fame pitchers, but when they had a bad outing, he knew when to take them out, and that's being
absolutely.
in touch with your guys. Like I don't think Roberts has any of. I mean, not any, but I don't like you said. Like I don't think he has that touch. He doesn't have that feel.
No, and that's
Because
the
I
point I'm
don't-
trying to make is that a guy like Showalter, LaRussa, Bobby Cox, like those guys, those like legends of managing, they managed the game as it unfolded. They weren't sitting there with a prescripted game plan or some analytics package that said, if it's Tuesday night and the sun is shining in the seventh inning, you have to do this. Like these guys managed what was happening, how the players were reacting, how the flow of the game was, what the crowd was like, what the conditions were like. They had a feel, they had that gut instinct for what to do next. And for a guy who played baseball, Dave Roberts appears to have zero baseball intelligence because he just doesn't read the situations.
But I think that kind of thing is cultivated. I think that kind of thing, I would bet that Bobby Cox and Buck Showalter and Tony La Russa and all those guys, I bet you they made some really shitty decisions early in their careers about how to manage a game.
Sure.
And they learned from them. They made bad decisions. They pulled a guy too soon, or they didn't pull him soon enough, or they pinch hit at the wrong time, or all those small decisions that go into managing a baseball game, and you have to do it 162 times a year plus the playoffs. That's a lot of experience. But it's almost like Dave Roberts has been handcuffed for his entire managerial career. It's like he's not given those opportunities. So as much as I put the blame on Dave Roberts because I think he deserves some of it, but I think the front office in LA deserves some, if not more, just because you got to let the guy feel his way through it. You can't then look at him and blame him for having no feel when he's been handcuffed his whole time. So I don't know. I mean, but that was to me just an abysmal decision. And whoever made the ultimate decision, whether it was Dave Roberts, whether it was people upstairs, whether it was a combination of all of them, they all belong in jail because that was absolutely outrageous.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Yep.
I can't.
That was one of the worst baseball decisions I think you'll ever see.
I don't think I had it on the leading off segment because I just blacked it out of my memory because I just didn't want to I just couldn't think about it because it's just mind numbing.
Yeah, honestly, that was my biggest surprise of the week for the next segment was the fact that we were on the cusp of a perfect game and it got yanked away from us like that. But to go back to the players of the week, MLB actually did announce their players of the week a few hours ago from this past week, and it was Seiya Suzuki and Jose Ramirez, who both had monster weeks.
Yeah, they did.
Monster week. Suzuki had the 2 home run game. Jose Ramirez continues to rake and drive in runs. And then, my player of the week choices, I was looking at both Vlad Jr. and then Ohtani. Both had big weeks that got their teams through a couple of big series. Ohtani got him through the Rangers series. Then you had Vladdy was big against the Yankees. So, and Vladdy's by far the better hitter overall, pure overall hitter. But I mean, what those guys have done with the bat over the last 7 days is unreal. Some of the balls they've hit, some of the home runs that Vladdy did hit are just mashed. I mean, he squares up everything.
Yeah,
absolutely
everything hard. It's crazy.
Yeah, he does. I know we talked about he lost up. Lost some weight. Looked great, but didn't lose any of that pop, and that ass is still a wagon. And he uses every ounce of it, man. Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful swing.
Yeah, I mean he's got an amazing. He's got that Manny Ramirez, Miguel Cabrera swing, but he's got his dad's hands. He's got the ability to go get a pitch that even those guys sometimes couldn't get.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily hate Grady Little for leaving Pedro in. I mean,
he's the best pitcher in baseball. You're going to leave him in. Yeah. You have Pedro friggin' Martinez.
You were dragging Pedro off the mound if he was leaving.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. You don't have, if you had Trevor Hoffman up in the pen, then you go get Trevor Hoffman.
Yeah, sure.
Or if you had, the options that were available to Grady Little at that time, Pedro was still your best option.
Young Kim.
Yeah, Pedro was still your best option. It sucked, and and I'm kind of glad it happened the way it did because that essentially gave the Red Sox kind of the push they needed to get rid of Grady Little and then bring in Terry Francona in 2000 the next year in 04, and then we win the World Series. So, and
Yeah.
I don't think they win the World Series in 04 with Grady Little at the helm. So, I think things worked out. I think that was a tough situation, though. Like, he did get roasted. Grady Little definitely got roasted. But, and of course, the media in Boston, too, is the worst because it's like they look at what happened and they saw that they lost. They're like, how do you not take him out? It's like, all right, dickhead, that's Pedro, the best pitcher in baseball. And I can guarantee you that the guy saying that on the radio was sitting on his couch the night before going, don't take him out, Grady. It's Pedro. Don't take him out. And then he gives up the lead, and it's like, that asshole should have taken him out. Like, Boston media is the worst.
Yeah.
The absolute worst.
I
So
just
bad.
like Grady Little never ever looked like he belonged on a baseball field. Like just his look alone.
Yeah.
Nothing about his knowledge or anything. But you like look at the guy and you're like, wait, you're a major league manager?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
What? Like he just didn't have that look. Like,
No.
but oh my god, man, crazy. All right, so our rounding third question of this week was the biggest surprise, good or bad? So far, Morgan actually put Seiya Suzuki. He's a huge Cubs fan.
Yeah.
Seiya Suzuki right now, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, and is hitting 400. He is 10 for 25 currently. So he has not missed a step coming over to the MLB. He looks good. He has an unorthodox swing. I don't know if you've seen
He
it,
does.
but
Yeah.
I mean, it gets the job done, man. I mean, whatever. He also said the other surprising thing is the Orioles having 3 wins already.
Well,
That was
and
awesome.
the Orioles actually have played the Yankees tough. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
they're not talented, but they certainly haven't quit.
Ken said the Mets pitching having 3 shutouts, and none of them are by DeGrom or Scherzer. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we lost Nick again. Yeah, man, Mets pitching is I wouldn't even say surprise of the week. I would say so far surprise of the first couple weeks, surprise of the first 9 games. To me, is the Mets
Yeah.
pitching, just because you lose DeGrom and because a guy like Taylor Megill has to step in, and they liked what they saw of him last year. The Mets did, I think, kind of the electric stuff, the fastball, the breaking ball. But I mean, to step in and have to fill those shoes, so to speak, is almost impossible to do. And I mean, by God, he's done as good a job as you could possibly do. And yeah, I would say I would double up on that. Who was it? You said
yeah, Ken said it. Yeah.
I would double up on that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt said the Red Sox stinking so far. His World Series pick is not looking so good. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't. When you look across the landscape, a lot of people expected the Sox team to be 500 or a hair better. So I think they are what people predicted them to be. Will they play better? I hope so.
Yeah.
But I think they are kind of playing as people expected them to be. They're going to be inconsistent.
the starting pitching hurts them. But
So speaking of pitching, what about this Japanese pitching phenom? This kid,
Yeah, the 19-year-old
Roki
kid, he had back-to-back
Sasaki.
perfectos.
17 consecutive perfect innings, struck out 19
Yeah.
in that perfect game that he just threw, and struck out 13 consecutive batters.
Yeah, and then he had a perfect game. He had those like 6 or 7 innings of perfect pitching in the following start, and then they
8.
yanked him.
Yeah, he got pulled after 8 perfect innings.
Dave Roberts over in Japan.
19-year-old kid, but I saw some of the highlights just like from what I was like on Twitter or whatever. I mean, he's throwing splitters that are missing bats by like 9 inches. it's like not even close.
So in the 8th inning of that second potential perfect game he got pulled from, his last pitch was a 101 mile per hour fastball to strike the guy out,
Yeah,
and then they pulled him.
Crazy.
Yikes.
Yeah, my biggest surprise it was Seiya Suzuki. I think just the transition from Japan to here without really missing a beat, and he's living up to the expectations. So I think that was my biggest surprise so far. So I agree with Morgan there.
Yep. Yeah,
But-
and my biggest surprise was the Kershaw situation, having gotten into that spot. But when you look at it, my biggest surprise in terms of performance is the Phillies. I just don't think they're very
good one.
good.
Yeah.
They're loaded with talent, but they're a mess.
Well, and I think this is the ultimate. I think we'll see. I don't think Joe Girardi is a great manager.
No.
I don't think he did well in New York. I think he had such talented teams in New York that underperformed year in and year out. And I think we're starting to see some of that in Philadelphia as well. I mean, we talk about the talent on the roster and the players they're putting on the field. And then, I mean, at a certain point, you got to look at the common denominator and go, maybe Girardi just doesn't have it. I don't know. But, I mean, we'll see. It is early still.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they're definitely a disappointment. When they teamed up with the Mets for the second series of the year, I'm like, oh, it's going to be awesome. And the Mets really should have swept that series. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
the Mets threw that game away, that final game of the season. I mean, the final game of the series. Threw away really with one bad inning defensively by Pete Alonso. It turned into a few runs that ended up costing them the game. And the Mets should have swept it. It was in Philly, and it should have been a sweep. And that would have been disgusting. So, So yeah, I'm with you on the Mets. I mean, I'm sorry, the Phillies.
I think one other thing I'll put out there too is I think when you look across the landscape of Major League Baseball right now, you've got, the AL East, which is considered the big bad division of the league. You've got a bunch of teams that are pretty mediocre at this point in the season. Granted, it's still early. That are struggling with consistency, struggling to find an identity, struggling to find a game that works for them. But you've got that whole division basically sitting at 500, and not overly impressive starts for any.
Yeah,
of them.
which is why I think Sox fans need to just kind of take a breath and pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, it's you started off against the Yankees, and then the Yankees then went ahead and had Toronto, and then Baltimore. You got Toronto coming up, starting tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of beating up on each other. There's going to be a lot of taking 2 out of 3 and then losing 2 out of 3, and then Tampa Bay going to New York and losing 2 out of 3. Like it's going to be a lot of leapfrogging from third place to first place, down to second place, down to fourth place, up to second place. It's going to be a lot. That's going to be all year long, and it's going to be, it's a marathon.
Yeah, and
I mean, I do think it helps, not having one team that has jumped out to that 7-2 record.
Right.
Because that would be, I just think once you get into the middle of May, if you're still 6 games behind, I mean, that would just be a tough thing to catch up on because of that. But with everyone kind of hovering around the 500, I mean, this is probably as good as you can ask for if you're a fan of any of them, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
if you're a fan of any of them. So, it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is that the Toronto Blue Jays this year are going to have like the ultimate home field advantage. Because the Red Sox can't bring Tanner Houck with them in this series. They're going to have to skip his start because he's unvaccinated, and it looks like they just put Plawecki on the list, not to bring him. Yeah, not to bring him also. Oh no, sorry, he tested positive, so he's not coming for that. But it's him and 2 staff members. But there's apparently 3 Red Sox not traveling for this series.
No,
but I haven't seen
this
the
is
names.
in Fenway. They're in Fenway. Toronto's coming into Boston.
Are you sure?
Yeah, 100%.
But either way, Plawecki's out.
You're right.
Yeah, Plawecki is out.
Yeah, they're talking about that's right, the travel.
Yeah,
that's right. This series when they go to Toronto after this.
Right.
There's
but
apparently
this one's
3.
in
That's
Boston.
right. I got a flip flop. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, but then the next series you're going to have
right.
Players that cannot travel, which is going to be interesting for the Blue Jays are going to get that benefit all year long of players that just can't travel. It's just a matter of who are they.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna head home here and give our opinions on the series to watch for the week. And I'll start off with, I mean, we just kind of talked about it, touched on it real quick, is Blue Jays and the Red Sox series.
That's my big one.
That will be an interesting one this week.
It's them, and then Mets Giants. I think is gonna be awesome.
Mets Giants is going to be great.
Yeah. And what's interesting for the Sox Blue Jays, they're going to play this week, and they turn right around, play again next week. So that we're going to see a pretty good dose of the Blue Jays here over the next 2 weeks to see how they line up to the Red Sox. And I agree. I think that Giants Mets series is going to be awesome. And I'm also looking forward to seeing what the Rangers Mariners series looks like to see how those teams shake out.
Yeah, that should be a good one too.
Would you
I
say
still- I-
Rangers Mariners? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that'll be interesting to see another one of those AL West matchups to see where they are. I do
Yeah.
like that Rangers team. I think that's a good team. They're a little lost right now with tons of new faces trying to kind of find their game, but they're going to hit well enough that they should make some noise. So I'm hoping that
And
they
then-
string some together.
Braves Dodgers.
Yes.
Yeah, I have Dodgers
I mean-
Padres too, also to watch.
At the end of the week.
Yeah, the weekend.
Yeah, because then this one cut like these. I think it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 3 games. It's Dodgers Braves. So Freddie facing the old team, Matt Olson, the replacement coming in. I think that'll be a good one. It's the Dodgers are playing really well. They won 6 in a row or 7 in a row, whatever that came out to be. But I think the Braves are going on the road. It's going to be out in LA. Be a nice little test for the Braves. But I think that should be a good one. Definitely one of those good series like late night at like 10 o'clock when you're kind of going to bed.
Yeah, we think Acuna and Freddie Freeman are going to hug it out or what?
I just saw he was hugging Ozzy Albies behind the batting cage, so he's on his
Oh,
way.
okay, good.
But,
You know Freddie's going to go find him and try to hug him because that's just who he is.
That's who
Right.
we. Yeah, right.
I mean, classiest guy in all of Major League Baseball. But I'm looking forward to his return to Atlanta. I mean, I think it's gonna be cool to face the Braves in LA. But his return to Atlanta will be must-see TV.
Oh, the return to Atlanta is
absolutely.
going to be top notch. Absolutely.
yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Any other series to watch this week? I mean, that you guys can think of. I mean, those were my 2 or 3.
I mean, I think the White Sox Twins series could be interesting. I think the Twins are another team that's kind of like on the cusp of are they good or are they not. The White Sox are considered the class of that division. It's in Minnesota, so the Twins have a chance to make a statement at home. I think that's a series at least worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah. I mean, it would be. I think it'd be better if Byron Buxton was healthy. I don't know what the hell happened to that guy. Just regular sliding to second base, and he's just hurt all the time.
And
Yeah,
no structural damage either.
Like all he does is get hurt. And
Oh,
it's
guess
like,
whose fantasy team? Mine.
So, but yeah, no, that should be a good one. Just to see if Minnesota can make a statement.
Yeah. What's weird with the Buxton injury is that he goes off the field, no structural damage. Then they haven't said anything in 2 days.
Yeah, right. You
It's
haven't
like
heard a
what
thing,
the hell's going on?
Right.
Yeah. Maybe he's just so used to being hurt that he just thinks he's hurt because he hit the ground.
Probably.
Yeah, maybe his knee's just like I'm gonna ache because I feel like I should at some point. We've been playing a whole week now. But what's disappointing is the fact that like the Twins looked good. Buxton, Correa, like they look good, and then Buxton goes down. And
Well, Correa's gotten off to a bit of a slow start hitting, but I mean he's just such a dangerous player that like
Yeah.
even when the bat's a little bit cool, like you still have to try and pitch around him because like you make one mistake and he'll put it on the moon. Like he's just such a dangerous hitter. It was interesting to watch. I mean, he was hitless this whole series going into today's game against Rich Hill, and then kind of had his way with Rich Hill as everyone did this morning. But but it was interesting to watch, like whether it was Tanner Houck yesterday. Waka yesterday looked awesome. Tanner Houck on Saturday looked awesome. But even they were just nibbling. Like they're kind of, if you're going to chase it, you're going to chase it. If you're going to take your walk, take your walk. I mean, he did get on a few times with walks, and the Red Sox were very, very careful with him. But he's going to heat up. His bat's going to heat up, and I'm just glad it didn't against the Red Sox because it could have been much worse than a 2-2 series split.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, although I don't love Correa, he absolutely changes the dynamic of that lineup for sure.
100%.
Can we just talk real quick about how absolutely huge Miguel Sano is? And he dropped 30 pounds in the offseason.
Oh,
He was standing on first base, and I can't even remember. It was like Kike or something's on first, and I'm like, and this guy dropped 30 pounds in the offseason? Like, oh my God, he is massive.
he is enormous.
Yeah, I can't.
Enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the guy
holy
was
shit.
0 for, the guy was 0 for the season and then comes into fucking Fenway, and he's not just getting hits, and it's not just getting hits. He was 0 for 19 coming in, and he's like fouling off tough pitches, and it's like, all right, like what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Like,
Then he puts one over the
like,
monster.
Everyone can get him out, no matter like easily on 3 pitches. Yet he comes into Fenway, he's like fouling off 0-2 breaking balls. It's like, all right, guy.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah,
Like, either be a good hitter or don't be a good hitter, but like make up your mind.
they list this guy at 6'4", 272, but he
Yeah.
looks like a Buick stood up. I mean, he is
But he's
massive,
huge.
massive. He's a gigantic human being. He should be playing. It looks like he should be playing linebacker. I wonder if the
Linebacker,
the
dude.
Vikings have called him. Actually, edge rusher.
Yeah, I was gonna
Line-
say not
lineman.
linebacker. He was
Just put him
his
and
hand
Frank
in the dirt.
Thomas on each side of the line and call it good.
right.
God,
for
could
sure.
you imagine? This is a massive dude.
Yeah, but man. All right. Anything else before we wrap it up, fellas?
I'm good.
All right.
No, I'm good. It was a good week in baseball.
Yeah,
It was.
definitely. Keep your eye out for the question of the week for next week, and then we'll get all those interactions next week. So just remember to like, subscribe, and share our podcast, share our page, and we will see you guys next Monday.
All right, guys.
See
See
ya.
ya.